Well, hello and welcome everybody. I'm Kevin Hall. I have the honor and privilege of being the president here, if you don't know that, and if you do, sorry for the duplication. Really excited to have you here today. Welcome back, first of all, to the start of another amazing year at Canada's best university. But yeah. But most of all, welcome today to the launch of something hopefully you've all been involved in over the last couple of years, which is the development of our new strategic plan that we'll be talking about today. And thanks also to people joining us online. I understand there's like 300 or 400 people online, so hello and welcome to this event. We're here meeting at Snaka House, and we're honored that the Songhees and Esquimalt nations have given us permission to use this name. And Snaka is named after the village that we now know as Cadbur Bay. The village was used for harvesting, trading, and cultural work, and it's very similar to how we're trying to come and live this new strategic plan. So it's my pleasure at this point in time to invite my friend Terry Bernard of the Songhees Nation to provide a welcome to Territorial. So thank you, Terry.
Hi, everybody, and to those online. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to first start off to take a moment of silence for the people in Libya and the fires here all over the world, basically. So if we can just take a minute and honor those people who are going through hell. Good afternoon, friends and family. As Sadachi, also as Terry. My late mother was Janet Dick. Skip Dick and Butch Dick are my maternal uncles, who I not only love and admire, but inspired me to start this journey that I am on. To my other relations in the room here, Equantus Cornela Hela. On behalf of my family and myself, we'd like to welcome each and every one of you here today. Welcome to Victoria, BC. Welcome to UVic. Welcome to the lands of the Lekwungen people, lands of smoke herring. We are on the lands of the Lekwungen people. We are a joint nation of Esquimalt and Songhees. We were one before treaties and borders. I would like to thank Jennifer UVic for allowing this time to follow cultural protocols on our lands. I am new at finding my voice, and I know how important this work is and needs to be done. So you have to excuse me if I'm really nervous and if I stutter. Asiyem Nachelacha, Asadachi or Terry. Cha Ethlasan at Lekwungen. Heichka Kwansla Ethla. Heichka Kwansla Tachel at Elanuk at Lekwungen. Heichka Siyem. Thank you for having me here today to start your studies in a good way here at UVic. You and I know this won't be easy, but I know you have what it takes to get through this final bit that you've been working on. As I mentioned earlier, I am new at this work. Like you, I have language classes, homework, and study. This recently new word I discovered is called sninu, which means discipline. In order for me to give you my words, it took a lot of sninu and a lot of discipline. The work you're about to take on will require a lot of discipline and sninu out of yourselves. You also will have homework and research that you will have to do. And I believe that a lot of you are new here to UVic. And don't be shy to reach out. You are in a safe place here at UVic. You have the support of UVic and its inner circle of people. You have the support of the local communities. You have support of Katie and her great team in the residential services. You are not alone. Be proud of your achievements to get this far. Be prouder of who you will be once you achieve what you came here for. Be proud of the sacrifices you took. Be proud of the sacrifices you are taking to stay here. Give yourself time to adjust. For some people, cultural shock and homesickness, and it's real. It's only normal. We are all proud of you, just being here today and online. Be patient, be gentle, look after yourself. You just got here. Give yourself time to adjust to your new environment. As I mentioned, I'm new to the UVic and campus area, so I fully understand how you feel. I may not know any of you personally, but today's a start. I can always leave my information with Jennifer, and you can reach out to me. I will gladly come visit and sit by the waterfalls with you. Songgeese means to come together. Today, we gathered. Today, that's a beginning. Keeping together is a progress. Working together is a success. I wish each and every one of you the best in your studies here at UVic, and I believe in each and every one of you. Haitska.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks for all the snenu that you put into the work that you bring here to us. We really all benefit from it, so thank you very much. And I'd also like to acknowledge land and language and acknowledge and respect the Lekwungen peoples, the Songhees and the Esquimalt, on whose homelands the university sits, and also to the Lekwungen and Wasanich peoples whose relationships with the land continue to this day. And I pay my respects to elders past and present. So today is a big thank you to over 6,000 people who contributed to the development of this plan. And so thank you for your ideas, for your encouragement, for your critiques, and for your inspiration that you provided as we created this plan. This is a plan for UVic. It's a plan for all of us. It's for all of you, whether you're an individual or you're a division or the university. It's for all of us to think about how we want to move forward. There's been a big breadth of... Thanks, Jeff.
No problem.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
There's a big breadth of consultation we've had as we move through this plan. Particularly, it was really great to engage our students, which is something universities typically don't do with their university plans. But our staff and our faculty, our retirees, the elders, our alumni, the community, the industry, the receptors of our students, and the people that sponsor our research all contributed to this plan. So thank you to them. And I'd also like to thank our strategic planning advisory group that we had, which was a group of internal and external members. We had things called TAGs. Can't remember what it stands for now, but I wanted to thank the TAG members, in particular my colleagues on the Executive Council, who all, let's say, willingly shared the tags. It wasn't part of the job description, but they did a fantastic job for that, so thank you. And I wanted to also thank Elango. Where's Elango? Elango was the principal strategic advisor for this process. He was the person who put a little rational thought into some absolutely random ideas. So thank you, Elango, and also to the Office of the Vice President of Indigenous. Kwaltsiamat is sitting there. But, we developed this plan purposefully with the Indigenous plan that'll be released on September the 30th. And there was a reason and an intent to do that. And I thought I also should thank the Pres office. So my colleagues that are in my office that actually did a ton of work to get to this point. So thanks to all of you. The plan itself was undertaken in about 5 phases over 18 months. It's hard to believe it's been 18 months. Most people would say, yeah, you should have done it a lot quicker. But it was really important. We had 75 meetings, we had 6 town halls, and we had over 3,000 people contribute to either online forums, online idea boards, or my favorite was the 10 pop-up stations we had with the students, where we would just go out and set up a tent and go, what's the world going to look like in 30 years, and how do you want this university to show up? How would you be proud as an alum? And it was amazing how they think of the big things, and as you sort of drill down into the institution, to people like me who's an academic, it's all about what can we do to make my life better? But these students were all about what can we do to make this a better world? And so it was great to have all that input. And so we hope that you'll be proud of this plan. We're really proud of what we've accomplished. And I think, this plan itself is really a tool for us all to use. Again, whether you're thinking as an individual in your job, or you're thinking as a division or a unit, or you're making decisions on behalf of the university, we want you to use this plan as kind of that decision-making matrix. We've also created this plan to really weave together all these other institutional plans. We're like any institution. We have so many plans. We've got a climate sustainability action plan, a global engagement plan. We have a equity action plan, an Indigenous plan, and a research plan. That's a lot of plans. And what we wanted to do with the strategic plan was actually weave those all together. So we found the commonality in those plans. and we hope that we can breathe some life into those by this strategic plan. So we're going to start quickly going through this, and I'm not going to talk the whole time, so don't worry, I'm almost done. We thought it was important to start with a purpose and a pledge and some principles, and we're going to go through just two of those for now. As the plan was coming together, a number of common themes really emerged to the top. And we had the executive draft a purpose statement based on what we were seeing and what we were hearing. And so the purpose statement, you can see there, it says that we are inspired by an honoring place. That's really important to us, to recognize we're here on the homelands of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples. We're in British Columbia, the westernmost province in this country. We are the biggest city on the most western edge of the Asia-Pacific Rim. We are in a place where environment and sustainability has always been big. So that was important for us to put that in there. We are also community-minded but globally engaged. We want to make sure we think about the community around us when we make decisions. The Indigenous communities, we want to think about those that aren't as fortunate as us that get to go to university, and that, by the way, is about 65% of Canada's population that doesn't go to university. And so what's our role in empowering that group of people? So we should always be thinking about the community. But it's okay to be globally engaged because we want to take what we learn and what we develop out into the globe. We also want to learn from what others have done around the globe. And the last piece is really about, what universities should aspire to, and most universities would put this in their statement, but we truly want to live this. We want to take ideas from students, staff, and faculty, and alumni, and people in the community, and transform those ideas into meaningful impact. And so that is all part of our purpose as a university. Do we have another one? Ah, look, we have another one come up. Fantastic. During our engagement, one theme kept percolating to the top, no matter which group we talked to, where we went to talk to people out in the community. And that was really our commitment to do work in reconciliation, decolonization, whichever word people choose to use, and we'll get to that a little later on. But there was a real commitment from all of our community to make sure that this was one of our pillars in the strategic plan. In fact, there was so much support, we decided not only to have it as a pillar, we wanted to make sure that we created in this plan a non-negotiable commitment to support and honor Indigenous rights. It's really fundamental to what we stand for as a university, and it's really critical, as a critical starting place for the work that is really going to uphold equity and justice. And so our pledge is that we pledge to hold ourselves accountable to ÁTOL NEUEL by respecting the rights of one another, being in right relationships with all things, and by upholding the rights of Indigenous peoples. As part of our commitment, we've included Lekwungen and Tsimshian names for all of the priorities in the plan. We're really grateful to the guidance and permission to use that language that we received from our elders, Sinentim, Dr. Elmer George from the Songhees Nation, and Distinctly, Dr. John Elliott from the Sartlip First Nation. Distinctly also provided the important teachings that accompany each priority, and I'm looking forward to honoring him for his work at the launch of the Indigenous Plan at the end of this month. The website that we've created for the strategic plan includes recordings so we can all learn how to use these names properly. So this is the part where we're going to get to the core of our plan, and I actually did want to give a big shout out to our marketing and comms team for creating what you see as the graphics for this plan, which are all elements that are local to us here. And I think it's just a fantastic, fantastic pieces of work that we've got in front of us that will hopefully inspire us. The priorities are really what define us as a university and that unite us. And these priorities that we're going to articulate, or others are going to articulate, are really things that we heard from people, things that we should keep in mind when we navigate the way we work as a university. They're really what makes UVic distinct as an institution. They reinforce that as a university community, we're really connected to redressing the historical barriers to higher education for Indigenous peoples, that we're trying to uphold equity and creating a culture of belonging on our campus, that we're trying to address the climate crisis to ensure that we have a more sustainable and fair future, and that we're really working together to embrace innovation and community partners to really help us do the work and to work with them. So let's dive into each of the priorities, and you're going to hear from your colleagues about their work and how it relates to the priorities. So our first theme is ʔetal NEWəl. So we want to be a community that is open to learning and prioritizing being in the right relationship and respecting the rights of all peoples and things, and to really deconstructing those systemic barriers that have really limited the full participation of First Peoples in the university's life and work. And so to tell you more about this priority and how they're living it, I'd like to introduce you to Ogunduk Jackie Green, the Executive Director of the Office of Indigenous Academic and Community Engagement, as well as Joel Lin, the Executive Director of Student Development and Success. So Joel and Jackie.
Get our spots. Yeah.
Yauts, wa hemas musmijis angwa, nugwa gondor, nugwa heilgenu, nugwa heisla. I want to take time to thank our elder for your beautiful words this morning, or to all of us this afternoon, and thank you for being such a gentle presence and a good teacher to all of us. So I hold my hands up to you. Haichika. I was invited to just chat with Joel about what this means to us, and so I think I went too much in my head in trying to prepare, and I pulled out the strategic plan. I was actually remembering back my first 2 weeks of the job, I was invited into a few tag meetings and didn't understand what those conversations were about. And so it's nice to see it unfolded so beautifully and just encompassed a whole bunch of knowledge from everybody here on campus. And so as I was preparing and thinking through it, I do want to acknowledge my dear colleague, Kwaltsiama. As a new faculty here over 20 years ago, I had some wonderful teachings around how to walk in a good way on this campus, how to walk in a good way in our classrooms. And so with that, ʔetal NEWəl reminds me around the work of the Indigenous people who have been on this campus for a long time, those who are faculty members and staff people who created spaces for Indigenous knowledge, Indigenous ceremony, and also just a space for us to come and talk and think through how we're going to survive year one or semester one. And so I'm saying that to share that we've been doing this work on campus for a long time, and I feel really supported to know that it's in this formal document by the university. ʔetal NEWəl recognizes the work that has been going on and recognizes the work that's yet to come. And so the other piece that I was very fortunate to be a part of when I started my job last year is to work with this wonderful man, Joel. And another part of the jobs I had was to support Joel and his team to do some brushing off of these new buildings that we have here. I'm not too sure how familiar you are with ceremonies and brushing offs, but it's a lot of work. And we worked on 5 floors with our elder, Auntie May Sam, and did all of that wonderful work. But for me, what I experienced in that work and what I experienced in a strategic plan, as someone who's been here for 23 years, I feel like that load is a little bit lighter because you're carrying a lot of it and you're carrying a lot of it. And to me, that's what reconciliation is about, that it's not all on us as Indigenous people to do this work. That's in this university to do the work. So the tag meetings and then the work of brushing off ceremonies and working with Joel, I was able to witness the respect and the knowledge that he had to learn from our elders to walk in a good way. From the time of getting a shovel to dig into the ground, there was a blessing done all the way through. So after it was done, I did share with Joel, that's the first time in my career that I felt like this load wasn't all on us to do. And when I mean load, it's a lot of work to do ceremony work. And so I just wanted to say that before I pass it over to Joel and say, wa haichka. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jackie. The strategic plan explicitly says an excellent student experience, and that it also explicitly says that we have a responsibility to honor local languages, local traditions, lift up the land in a different way for our students. And if you think about where we landed and got to present day, we now have, as Kevin in his opening remarks highlighted, the history of the name Snaka. we have two family names that we have significant responsibility for in terms of keeping them alive, their history, their story. They recognize place, they recognize First Peoples, and you can imagine in setting out and changing who we are and what we do, we welcome 3,000 students now every year to live in student housing. We welcome several thousand students a day and faculty in the classrooms below, and several guests of the university in the conference center that we are all in today. And the hope and aspiration for everybody here and for folks that are bringing that invitation is we now have tools that have been provided to us through a lot of work in the local communities, and that is the name Snakka and Chuknin, that is available to you to learn more about the history of the families and the importance of it, what it means for land and language. And I encourage everybody to use those through that process that we did to get to present day, to think differently about the land acknowledgement. It was quite rewarding for me in the work as a white settler and decolonizing myself in this process and hearing the words of Elmer in his acknowledgement that the family names are actually positioned there. So if you listen to the university's land acknowledgement that's recorded, you'll hear Chuknin, you'll hear Snakka, and you'll hear in his heart and in his voice what it means to him and an importance. We started off by thinking about decolonizing a capital project and decolonizing a residence life and education program. But it ended up with teaching tools and bringing to life trust through the communities to have land and language very, very visible and present in our campus community, that I just acknowledge you and your team in helping us to get there in such a good way. I would also offer, in terms of lessons learned and to get to this place, many colleagues across the university, so our colleagues in the Office of the Vice President Indigenous, our colleagues in IACE, our colleagues in the University Secretary's office, if you think about just simply changing the university's building naming policy and our signage policies and some of the positioning of how we address and use local languages. I think about my own colleagues in student affairs and student housing and our food services colleagues that now have an obligation to keep that work alive in everything they do every day as we have students in this community. I think about our facilities management colleagues, and I think about our campus planning and sustainability colleagues. All of those folks were involved in different ways in supporting the guidance and teaching that you and your team so thoughtfully and carefully and trustingly gave us an opportunity to open that door of the house that day, Robina, to a first conversation, which I deeply appreciate with you and Lolita to get us to present day. So I just offer that as my reflection on what you're sharing. And Jackie, if there was one thing to share with our colleagues here today, if they were embarking on similar work, what would you recommend? Or what would you say to them?
Call Joel.
That wasn't in the script. That's right. Yeah.
No, thank you. I think, I guess for me, being here for such a long time, I think that this university set a really good precedent around respecting the local territories, the languages, and the teachings, and having these buildings built in a very good way. And so I think it's all about, I think in order to do good work, you all need to know what your own work is and what does this territory mean to you. Why would it be any interest for you to rename one of your buildings or classrooms, and just know the story behind that and before you move forward. And I will say that at Camosun College they are doing a name in honor of Dr. Skip as well. And so we're setting a precedence here, and we've got incredible teachers and elders who are working with us to do this in a good way. And I'll just close and reflect on what Terry shared as well, is that this is new to us.
Yes.
It's new to me too. Walking in this way, walking at this level of administration. And so sometimes it's challenging and tiring, and sometimes I get scared. But I think it's really important. I just appreciate being able to work with, my friend Joel here and others on campus. So, haichka.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jackie.
Thanks, Joel and Jackie. And I apologize, I'm actually standing at this podium all day, but I actually had a bad surgery from a doctor who was trained at the University of Calgary, rather than UVic. So I'm not that mobile. But anyway, let's go on to our next priority. So our next priority, there we go. Our next priority is people, place, and planet. And there was a lot of conversation during this process about whether, this was too big and too chunky a piece, that we should say that we want to work to save the planet, and then, well, we might do some things for people as well. But you know, when we really thought about it and got down into it deeply, and we respect things like the Sustainable Development Goals that our university stands behind, people and planet can't be separated. And so we ended up with people, place, and planet as one of these themes. And this is where we talk about what we can do in climate and sustainability and making this a better place, but it's also about how do we treat our employees and our students and help them build and develop their career paths. How do we work on, sorry, I'm talking too fast. How do we work on equity and justice issues that are really important to this institution? And we absolutely felt like they couldn't be broken up. And so they're together. And if you read through the plan, you'll see a lot more text about what we're meaning here than what I can tell you. But the best way to get to it is to have some good examples. And so I'm now going to ask on Casbria Dewis, who you know is the Executive Director for Equity and Human Rights Office, and Kara Shaw, a professor in the School of Environmental Studies, to come and tell us about people, place, and planet.
All right, Casbria, I wasn't directly involved in the planning process, but you were. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about your involvement.
Are we too close to this mic? Okay. All right, thanks. Yeah, as Kevin mentioned, they were tags, so Kevin's thematic advisory group, just to clarify that. So in my role, I was invited as Executive Director of the Equity and Human Rights Office to sit on the thematic group and to be a part of that conversation, and that's why I'm here today as well. And in that role, I was really conscious of my identity and who I was showing up as a cis white woman, as an uninvited settler to these lands, and my responsibility and accountability to this community and to the work that we all need to do. And I really felt, and I think some TAG colleagues are in the room, all of us together, we really felt that accountability, and how can accountability show up in this theme. So not only accountability to our university community, but to those who don't share the power, the privilege that I get to share via my identity and my position on the campus, but also to our planet and our climate and our larger community. So how can this accountability show up in a theme under a strategic plan? And where we landed, I think, is a really powerful call to action for our community. So the strategic plan sets out this call to action for each of us as individuals, as units, as faculty, to use our power, to use our position, to use our expertise, and to use our influence to address these pressing issues of our time. So no matter where we sit at the institution or as learners here, what can we do to address climate change, sustainability, systemic oppression, and where can we show up in this conversation? And how can we embed care and respect, not only for each other, but for our planet in all that work we do? So I think that's where it really showed up for me. So as someone doing work in this exact area, reading the plan, how did it resonate for you?
Well, everything you just said resonates like right down to my toes. I think that's kind of the core of where I come from, and people, place, and planet are also really very much the core of everything that I do. I'm just going to talk about one example to try and stay within the time limit. How many of you, hands up, are concerned about climate change? Yeah. Now, how many of you feel really confident that you're able to advance effective climate action? I'm glad there were a couple of hands that almost went up.
I think
so that's really the gap that we were trying to fill when we developed this new program that launched last week called the Certificate in Transformative Climate Action. So this program really emerges from the realization that we're needing to rapidly scale up climate action, both again, kind of in scope and in pace. And we're struggling to do so. But the reality is that the struggle that we're facing is not one of primarily technological barriers, but of human dimensions. What's keeping us from advancing at the pace we need to is that we actually don't know how to change our societies, our economies, our politics, and our behaviors rapidly enough to meet the climate challenge. So fundamentally, what the certificate's trying to do is tackle that. It's grounded in the human dimensions of climate change, and it really is trying to put the need for us to develop climate action that works for communities at the center of the learning experience. Because until we can develop climate action that communities are supportive of, we're not going to be able to move society quickly enough and effectively enough towards the solutions we need. So this is a program that seeks to sort of put people, planet, and place right in the center of a learning community and build that community out into effective action in the world. tell us more about what you're doing, maybe, Caspria?
Yeah, so building on, it just sounds like such an amazing, this is a conversation that isn't scripted. So it just sounds like such an amazing project, and like principles of People, Place, Planet were embedded from the very start. And just thinking about what we're doing in our office that could feed into this goal, I want to share a few examples. I'm not going to give the depth that Kara did, but just touch on some things that are launching this fall that I think can also support all of you in kind of engaging with this theme and with the strategic plan. So starting, we're reviewing with our review of our discrimination and harassment policy. We're asking, how can policy leave kind of the dust and become a tool for culture change? Well, we're co-designing a principle-based policy with our community, but also how can we engage in a thoughtful process to embed Indigenous rights within our policies? We've recently launched a couple workshops. One is power, privilege, and accountability for folks who are leaders at the university to understand their power, their privilege, and their relationships with one another, and how we can use power unintentionally to cause impacts, and on the positive side, intentionally to create positive change, which is really what this plan is talking about. How do we intentionally create positive change? We've also adapted our anti-oppression program to be a 5-part program. And the impetus here is really that everyone needs to be invited into this conversation. We all have a role to play, and that baseline learning and understanding requires quite a bit of education, so it's inviting everybody into that learning space. Our Equity Action Plan was launched last fall. We know it's hard to implement these plans, so we're implementing a implementation toolkit for everybody, for units, to think about how can we implement the plan at the unit level and embed accountability, drive that accountability for the actions across the institution. And then we're also launching a Better Data project, which will change the way that UVic collects self-ID data and demographic data, so that we'll have a better understanding of who's on our campus and the diversity that our community makes up. So just to name a few small things that people can get engaged with this fall.
I'll just say one word about diversity and accessibility, because also at the core of this certificate is the commitment that we're not going to be able to design climate action that's actually responsive to community needs unless we have all the diverse people in the community present around the table to do that. And so we've tried to design the certificate to be as accessible as possible by making it possible for not only current UVic undergraduates and graduate students to take it, but because the programming is all available online asynchronously, anybody, anywhere in the world can take the certificate. And that lets people who are working full-time, who have family obligations, who live at a distance or whatever, be able to come and engage in the certificate and learn about climate action. So we're trying to sort of use that to build a really accessible, dynamic community of learning to support climate action going forward towards a climate resilient future.
That sounds amazing. So I'm so excited to learn about that. And so just for folks that don't know, Kara and I this is kind of our first time working together, but I'm imagining from the People, Place, and Planet priority, this is an opportunity for us to work together more and to build those principle-based projects and initiatives across the institution. And we thought we'd just leave you with a couple calls to action as you're considering building projects across the institution, to think about, like, who is your work benefiting? Who is it not benefiting? What assumptions and biases are you building into your projects as you start them out? What impacts locally and globally will your project have? And then how are you going to evaluate success? What's success going to look like at the end? And do those metrics include the values and the principles that this strategic plan sets out for all of us to kind of consider? So I really look forward to working with you, Kara, and with all of you as we're engaging in these particular questions going forward.
Thanks, Caspria.
Thanks, Kara. Thanks, Caspria. That was terrific. Our next priority is a culture of change and transformation, and I use this way too often, but I'm going to use it again. Universities have often been accused of moving at the speed of the glaciers, right? Until now, the glaciers are going much quicker. And what we really want to do is change things. We want to give people the license to think about doing things in a new way, to question why you do something like you do it, and is there a different way of doing it? We want to give people permission to take a little bit of a risk once in a while. Everything doesn't have to be, all the I's don't have to be dotted and the T's don't have to be crossed for everything. Sometimes they do, and I see Ada looking at me saying, oh my God, you know, Senate, Board of Governors, we dot the I's and cross the T's. But don't worry, we'll keep doing it. But we really want to reimagine what we do and how we do it and why we do it. And so this theme is really about giving us license to do that and being courageous and open to change so that we can help really transform our communities and our world. And to speak to this, I'd like to invite Mina Hofar, the Dean and a Professor in Engineering and Computer Science, and Carissa Softy, Organizational Development Consultant in Human Resources. And
Hey, thank you so much, Kevin, and it's great to see you all. I'm so nervous, not because I'm talking to 600 people. I have to move here, thanks. I was one of the tag member for this one, and it was pleasure to be part of this committee. And I'm nervous because I want to make sure that I can convey my passion when we started working on this one. And it's very good actually to see that all different themes, they're sort of bleeding into each other and there are lots of common things. I wanted to thank our elder and mention something. I learned a lot actually today. One of the things was you mentioned about support and collaboration, and the word Sankey means coming together, and the collaboration is a success. And it's one of the aspects of this one. But today I wanted to talk to you about two words in this pillar or theme which they're very important to me, and whoever knows me, they know that I'm crazy about these things. One is risk and the other one is trust. I'm a risk taker. I love changes, I love risk, and everybody knows about it. And in the past week or so, I became so fortunate to know Carissa and talking a little bit about special risk and trust. And I wanted to pass it on to Mike, and you talk about the project you recently started and sort of advertised today.
Oh, thank you.
And hopefully talk about these two and how you prioritized in your work, Carissa.
I didn't think I was nervous, but my Garmin watch has just alerted me that I'm exercising.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things I've gotten to do the last couple of years is assess how we deal with workplace conflict. And spoiler alert, we are very conflict avoidant. I know that's a big shock to all of us. And when I think about risk, I think about also just embracing conflict. We are not going to be able to do all of this without disagreeing. We're not going to be able to do all of this without having difficult conversations. And so we have to figure out how to do them better. And so we're working on it. We're building a toolkit that we're launching this fall. We've designed a learning series for employees to build the skills of conflict competence. And all of that will be available at uvic.ca/conflict.
Just take it down.
Just taking it. But I think what you were saying, Mina, about trust, and I remember when we were chatting last week, just that trust is risk, and that we build trust by dialoguing, and we build trust by repairing when the dialogue goes bad, and stepping in and taking those risks to have those tricky conversations and fixing it later. Can you say a bit more about when you said what's behind door number 2?
Yes. So I always say, 3 minutes. I always say that, status quo is safe. You know what is behind the door, but you are missing out a lot if you don't take a risk and open other doors.
Yeah.
And I wanted to chat a little bit. We chat, last week about the risk and failing.
Yes.
The concept of failing and how, this theme actually talks about it's okay to fail.
Yes.
Failing is different than failure. It's okay to fail, and you learn, and you have the support, as our elder mentioned. This is what we wanted to create in this community. And I wanted to get back to in your work as conflict and how to support fail. In your conversation with people, in people conversation together, how do we support people?
I think so much of this is about courage and not skill. People are scared to have difficult conversations because they're scared of getting it wrong, and they think that's a skills gap. And so when I would ask, hey, what's getting in the way of us doing conflict well? The answer was always, I don't think we have skill. And I would push and I'd say, is it that we don't have the skill or we don't have the courage? So we don't have the skill or we don't have the confidence. And I think being okay with, you might do it wrong.
Yeah.
And that's okay. We'll fix it later. We'll figure out how to fix it. That failing forward, let's try, because if we don't try, we just let it fester and build until it's too much.
Absolutely. And as Karen mentioned, climate change is something that we're all worried about. And I try to raise my hand about the action that we're trying to do. I know technology is not something that we're worried about. It's more about the society, how they adapt to the climate change and the new solution. But it's still the technology is not there. And that's what we're trying to do as a change in the science and engineering. You know, fossil fuel has been around for a long time, and our economy has been based on fossil fuel. But now we're trying to change the story and taking risk and installing solar panels and doing the wind turbines, and how to make sure the people and the community accept that. That is another exciting part of our new life.
And something we were talking about last week too is that it's really easy for these to feel like really lofty out there. The university is going to do that.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, this is stuff we each have to
Yes.
commit to and do on our own way, and the small incremental decisions that are going to accumulate over time.
Yes, and you know what? Another part of this theme is collaboration. What do you say in your conflict? Because if there's no collaboration, there's no conflict, as you say. If we don't work together, nothing will happen, of course. How do you implement it in your conflict resolution?
I think one, it's getting better at pre-conversations about how we're going to work together and being proactive. I think it's also about getting conflict before it grows. Like, hey, when you're at that table and you're with someone and they say something that just kind of hits you wrong, and you think, oh, I'm just going to let it go. But then the next meeting, you're like, there's that person that said that thing that time. And so how can we get better at, I'm really sorry, but that just didn't feel good to me. Can we talk about that? And getting those little moments so that we can collaborate together in a good way and bring our heart and bring our good heart and our good feelings.
So, Carissa, you've seen many universities with different strategic plans. I've seen them, many of them. I never look at them because there's just a nice document there. But I think UVic one is very different, not because I was one of the teams, which I'm very proud, but because it comes through from our heart. And we've been doing all of these things. If you look at the campus, across the campus, in your department, in my faculty, we're taking risks. We're trusting people. We're trying to collaborate. We're trying to provide support for another and access for everything that we want. But putting these words in the strategic plan, make it real.
Yeah.
And then we can refer to it. Do you agree with that?
I so agree.
Yeah.
Makes it real. And I think the other thing is that really just, it has to be real for each of us. And I think all of us could sit in this room and get really overwhelmed by, here's all this other stuff we got to do. No, it's what we're already doing. This is just about how we do it.
And you know what? I'm really thankful to the team because brought us together and we have a lot to talk. I didn't know Carissa before actually this one. So this is another great aspect of the strategic plan and this gathering and town hall that we can know each other and know about what we do in each of the department. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks, Mina. Thanks, Carissa. So we're on to our last of the four themes that we have, and this is partnering for a shared future. And this is where we really want to think about how we partner both internally and externally. Internally, you know, how do faculties get along with each other and co-teach fantastic programs? How do staff and faculty work together to solve some of these problems? And so what are the barriers that hold that down, and really how do we do better in partnerships? On the external side, one of the things I'm told the most often is when the university goes into the city to meet with a group, we go and say we're the experts. And that's one of the worst things you can do as a partnership. So how do we build those true, deep, two-way partnerships, those meaningful partnerships where we learn from each other? And so this is really at the roots of this thing, partnering for a shared future. And so I'd like to invite up Crystal Tremblay, who's a professor in geography and the director of our United Nations Training Center, CFEL Victoria, along with the Prina Jain, purchasing officer for purchasing services. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, no pressure. We have some tough
All
acts
the duos
to
were
follow.
so good. No pressure, no pressure.
Well, thanks, everyone. I also had the pleasure to be on the thematic advisory group for this pillar. So just a shout out to my colleagues I got to spend some time with, really reflecting on, you know, the great work that UVic's already doing in this area. If you didn't know, UVic's really a global leader in partnership and community engagement. We have strong supports for faculty and community-based research. As a faculty doing community-based research, it feels really great to be well supported in that work. We have a really strong community-engaged learning program and throughout our campus operations as well. So, Prina, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing.
Sure, thanks, Crystal. So I started with UVic purchasing as a co-op student and got the opportunity to work in this sustainable procurement project. And now it is an integral part of my life, thanks to purchasing, UVic purchasing. Yeah, so what we are doing here is like, I'm saying, partnering for shared futures. To me, it is brainstorming and working together to serve our community in healthy and equitable ways, I would say. And here at Purchasing, what we are trying to do is striving to create a sustainable supply chain network, which not only welcomes and encourages Indigenous participation, but also creates a community which is sustainable. So at Purchasing, we have recognized our values and expectation and made it a part of our supplier code of conduct, as well as we have partnered with EcoVadis to assess our suppliers' CSR performance. So we are doing all those things, but truly speaking, to make any significant impact, we would need your support. We would need our client support. Yes, and maybe you can tell us more about what amazing plans you have, Kristen.
Yeah, thanks, Pranav. Well, it's so great to hear what you're doing in purchasing around local procurement and working with Indigenous suppliers. And yeah, we have some pretty exciting things happening with ʔetal Victoria, as Kevin mentioned, new United Nations training center. How many of you have heard of ʔetal Victoria? Oh, that's really good news. Okay. Well, we're accredited training center. We accreditate specialized courses, and we're actually we're going to be coming to chat with you and your unit soon, Perna, because we're along with some colleagues in the School of Business and Office of Global Engagement are developing some new courses to help implement sustainable development goals throughout the university. So specialized training for faculty, for staff, for students, and for senior leaders. And we know that local procurement is really important for addressing the sustainable development goals.
Yeah, and you know what? I think so. We have taken a step towards partnering for a shared future. Recently, VPI has formed an advisory committee for art procurement, and we have got this opportunity to collaborate. We are one of the members, Purchasing is one of the members, and what we are trying to do is create a framework for Indigenous art procurement so that we can provide that comfortable and respectful space for Indigenous people or suppliers to do business and just to encourage more participation. So yes, purchasing is not just web requisition or contracts or purchase order. We are here to collaborate for any opportunity that we could have so that we can together reduce negative impact on environment and have positive social outcomes. So please, please, please come to speak to us, and so that we together can collaborate for some better solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal and Verna. So my sheet says we're right on time almost, and then there's a note that says, "Bring it home, K-pop," which apparently is my new nickname. We wanted to finish off with really living the plan, and I hope one of the takeaways from what you've heard here today from the champions is that, you know, many of us are living this plan already, and this has been mentioned. What we're trying to do is really build a framework around that and encouraging you not to do more, not to scrap and restart all the things you're doing, but to think differently about what we're already doing and how we can do that differently and how we're going to make decisions going forward as an institution. The plan is really for everyone. It's for staff and faculty to come together in new ways. It's for our leaders to think about how this plan fits within their area and how we can bring new ideas into the teams that we have at the university. And it's really for the campus community itself to clearly understand really the values and directions that we're trying to move this institution in. Its purpose, its goal is really to guide and inspire our community, and I would encourage you all to go to the website of the strategic plan. There'll be regular updates of stories about people living the 4 themes and the values and principles and the pledge of our institution. We'll be creating a scorecard to see how we're doing, kind of like on the back of those trucks on the highway, 1-800, how's my driving? We'll kind of have the same thing. We really want to track our progress as we move forward. We want to get you to think about reading the plan through. I know nobody likes to read big plans. This is a pretty short plan. It's not heavily intensive with words, and it's not directive. It doesn't say, here's a list of 1,562 things that you must do over the next 5 years. We want you to really read it and see where you feel that flicker of excitement, what resonates with you, and where can you think about things that you can do that you actually want to do to make a difference. And don't be afraid to try something new. Get yourself out of your comfort zone, go meet new people, work with people, collaborate, and think about doing things differently. And most of you probably know this is our 60th anniversary this year as a university. Does everybody know that? Cool, I just found out. But so what a fantastic moment to take a chance to really reflect back on the fantastic 60 years history of this institution and why we are Canada's best university, but think about how we become even better as we move into the next 60 years. So let's go face that crazy changing world with a renewed commitment, and let's go live this plan. This is your plan. It's a plan for all of us on campus, and so with that, we're done. Thank you.